Mm-hmm. Yay, there we go. Okay. Why can't I see myself?
At least it's a nice office thing.
Yeah, right.
This would have been the second one we lost this week.
Oh, bummer. I know how that goes.
First you saw the last one.
Okay. For those of you guys who are already in, wave your hand if you can hear me. Okay. Can you see me?
No.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought. All right.
Ah.
So everybody, I'm going to end the meeting really quick and then, well, actually, my video is not working and unfortunately I need you guys to see me. So just stay tuned for a second. I may have to end the meeting and restart it, but just like hang out for a moment until I'm sure. Okay. Join. Okay, let's join my own meeting. 474 Okay. If you guys can hear me, give me a wave. Okay, perfect. And I'm actually under my own Zoom right now, as the video was not working. Club Pilates one, so no big deal though. Oh, look at everybody. Yay. Allie. And boom. All right, we're gonna set this up for space. Everybody make sure you guys are all muted too.
Hello, my dear.
Hello, everybody. All righty. All righty. And Sue, Sonia, logging in. Okay, cool. Nancy, Maria. Yeah. Liberty. There's Jane, Joan, Karen. Ah, Corey Bunny. All right. All right, everybody. So I just want to double check for the people who just came in. If you can hear my voice, just wave at me. Okay, cool. I am actually on my personal Zoom for those of you who just came in because the video on the Club Pilates one is not working for me. So I'm just doing the best I can today. So here we are. It's right on the dot, and I'm sure some people will be logging in at the last minute, but we might as well get started. We're gonna kind of do the same type of thing that we did last Friday, where we're going to talk a little bit about something and then relate that to the Pilates exercises. So last week we talked about the breath. This week we're going to talk about the pelvis and the pelvic floor and everything that surrounds that. So if you happen to have like a prop, like a weight or a soup can or your remote control or just like anything that has like a little bit of a weight to it that's around you, go ahead and just grab it. If you have like a little ball, anything, just take a second and just grab that. If you don't worry, okay? It's no big deal. You can still do all the exercises with us, but this is actually going to help us when we get to talking about our neutral pelvis and all that stuff. So I'll give you a second to get that together. A soup can will probably work the best, or if you have hand weights at home, hand weights work. You don't have to have that. So all the exercises we are really going to focus on the muscles that surround the pelvis, and they help us to find pelvic stability, because in my personal opinion, pelvic stability is just the key to life. The more sitting we do, the more we turn off the muscles, the more
unstable the pelvis is going to become. And the pelvis is your base of support. It bears the weight of your entire upper body. And then it distributes that weight down through the hips and the legs, much like, you know, kind of like the Eiffel Tower, right? It's got that middle piece and it goes up and then it's got its legs. Same thing here with the body. It consists of the bones. You have your hip bones. You can feel them here. They're often called your ASIS joints. And then you have your sacrum. I'm always talking about the sacrum in class. If you don't know where the sacrum is, by the way, you're gonna have to look at my butt today. Your sacrum is right where your back and your cracks start. Okay, so it's right, if you were dressing up like a bunny for Halloween, it's right where your bunny tail would be. So if you put your hand back there, you can feel it. It's hard, it should be bony. The fascia and everything that exists in that area is super thick and hard. It's not very mobile, but it's there. And then, of course, you have your pubic bone. So you can put your hands right on the pubic bone. In fact, if you make a triangle with your hands just like this, and you allow your fingers to come on to the pubic bone area, then your thumb will rest near or close to the belly button. And that's about where your pubic bone is right where your fingers are, your first two fingers. That's your pubic bone, in case you didn't know. So all of those three things are held together by all kinds of ligaments all up in the hip. And then surrounding the hip are the muscles, and then all of that together is what propels us forward, or what should be propelling us forward in our daily lives. In Pilates, you hear us always talking about neutral spine. Neutral spine. What is neutral spine? Why do we have to have it? Do I actually have it? Am I sure? It's not the end of the world if you do not have perfect neutral spine. In fact, Joe Pilates never taught in neutral spine. He taught what we call imprinted spine, which is where you gently curl the pelvis towards you so that the lower back becomes pressured onto the floor. But we now know, because of science and experimenting with this method over so many years, is that this is not the best way to train the bodies that we are working with now. So the types of bodies that Joe worked with, and pardon me if I stereotype, but there's some exercises where, for one, is called the washerwoman, because back in his day, a lot of women hand washed their clothes, and the movements that they made are very similar to the exercise that he created. But they were very active. They were not always working in the home, so they were working outside of the home. So inside of the home, they were picking up the kids and doing the laundry and doing all this stuff. And then men, typically, they had some jobs that were stationary, but for the most part, they also were active people, because computers and cell phones and telephones and all that stuff did not exist really when Joe was creating his method. So we now know that an imprinted spine compresses or can compress the lower back. There's some instances where an imprinted spine is used as a modification for an injury or a limitation. But for the most part, we want to train the body in Pilates to be in neutral so that we can carry that neutral spine with us out into the rest of the world. The idea is that your hip bones and your pubic bone, as well, your hip bones and your pubic bone are in the same plane, as well as both hip bones are in the same plane. So you're not tilted forwards or backwards or side to side. So what we call an anterior tilt of the pelvic bones are moving anterior. People, you see this in young people, it causes this back compression here, and it's no core engagement at all. What most of us actually do, and you're probably sitting like this and you don't even realize it, is that we have a posterior pelvic tilt where we actually are sitting slightly tucked back behind the sits bones, and we're not really stacked straight up. In fact, if I were to back myself up against a wall, I would have a lot of space right here. I wouldn't actually be sitting up nice and tall on top of my hips. So that's how most of you guys are usually sitting. If you drive for a living or sit in a desk for a living and you don't have a specific chair that brings you out of this position, you are constantly sitting in a posterior tilted position. How many of you sit like that on a regular basis and complain of low back pain? So many of you, because that imprinted position we're finding over time actually compresses more. One reason that the biggest complaint I hear from clients who transition from taking a lot of bar classes to Pilates, especially when the bar classes are not based in neutral spine. The ones we teach at Club Pilates are based in neutral spine. But the ones that are not, that exist out there, there's a lot of tuck and tuck and tuck and tuck and tuck, and there's no bringing that spine back to neutral. So it's basically, you feel the glute muscles slightly working, but you're really just compressing the lower back, and you're not really doing yourself any service. Okay? When you have a neutral spine, your body systems, okay, your heart, your organs, all actually exist in. Spend your time sitting in a posterior tilt at a desk all day long, you're actually preventing yourself from getting air into the lungs. We talked about that last week. You're limiting your ability to digest. You probably have some type of maybe constipation or some type of a bowel issue going on. So neutral spine actually allows more space inside of the body so your organs can function better. It allows, like I said, the vertebrae to become less compressed, specifically in the lower back. And it also allows your diaphragm to work better. So we talked about the diaphragm last week, and breathing moves up and down. If you were sitting like this, okay, imagine your diaphragm doesn't have very much room to go. So you're not getting in that full breath. You're not really cleansing your lungs. If you sit up tall, your diaphragm has much more space to move and allows you for better breathing. So who knew your pelvis is actually going to help you breathe better? But overall, a neutral pelvis is actually going to enhance our potential for movement. Okay, and that can mean so many different things. Maybe you are an athlete, maybe you're just trying not to fall on a regular basis. Whatever it is, having a neutral spine will only enhance whatever movement you're doing on a regular basis. The muscles that help us produce those movements, there's a lot of them actually. There's like 9 in one area, and then like a bunch of others, and I'm not even gonna go into all that, but the 3 that we always talk about in Pilates that I do want to mention are your glutes, your psoas, and your piriformis. So your glutes, you have your glute max, glute med, and glute minimus. You have 3 different ones. These are powerful muscles, and these are what kind of propels you forward. So if you've ever walked, or if you're not doing too much grocery shopping lately, but I'm sure you have to, the shopping cart, if you're pushing it like this and you're leaning forward, you're leading with your shoulders, right? And if you were to stand up and push the cart as though your hips are pushing the cart and your hands are just there to guide it, okay, you're actually now propelling yourself forward from the glutes. I practice that a lot when I work, when I take Cannon in the stroller, because I'm always like, oh, my shoulders hurt. And I'm like, well, no kidding, because my spine is not neutral. I'm not enhancing my potential for movement. Then you have your psoas. That connects your upper body to your lower body. I'm always talking about the psoas in class. Sitting kills your psoas. It actually holds your upper body and your lower body together. If you chopped it in half, you'd fall right over. But every time you sit, you're shortening it and shortening it and shortening it and shortening it, unless you do things like Pilates or maybe yoga or very intentional movement where you are coming into an extended or a neutral position, you're never going to get that length. And that's when people start to complain of a lot of hip tightness. That's what we usually feel there. And then you have your piriformis. We always give the piriformis stretch after glute work because it feels fantastic, but the piriformis helps stabilize the head of your femur in your hip bone. So if you have a weak piriformis, your leg's going to move around in your hip like this, and that's going to cause all kinds of problems over time. That's why dancers need hip replacements on the regular basis. So a strong piriformis muscle is going to decompress the piriformis nerve, take the pressure off, therefore preventing any kind of sciatica. But it's also going to stabilize your leg, like I said, inside of your hip. Okay. The last thing I want to mention that we're always talking about in Pilates is the pelvic floor. Okay. The pelvic floor is much like the diaphragm, but instead of having its sling be more like this, it's like this. It's down here too, like dome shaped legs, and it also holds in your uterus. It's often referred to as like a sling, and that's kind of what it looks like if you were to go and get a picture of it right now. It's basically and for women, it's sling that helps us maintain intra-abdominal pressure, which we know is really good for our breathing. We talked about that last week. The easiest way to train your pelvic floor, or to even find the pelvic floor, is to do a Kegel. If you do not know what a Kegel is, the easiest way to feel that is next time you go to pee, See how many times you can stop your pee. Start it and stop it, and start it and stop it, and start it and stop it, and you are training your pelvic floor. If that doesn't work for you and you're more of a visual person, maybe you imagine like an elevator going up, 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 up inside of you, and then down, down, down inside of you. I know a lot of women relate to the coin purse where, or like those jewelry purses that lay flat and then you pull the drawstrings and it sucks up like this. So that's another way to think about your pelvic floor coming up and together. If you're a male, we often will say, hey, pretend you just walked into some really cold water, and then their pelvic floor will do the same thing that a woman's pelvic floor will do. If you're not sure how to feel that, try to imagine while you're also trying to stop your pee that your sits bones, your butt bones are coming towards each other, and that's going to start to help you engage your pelvic floor more. I want you to grab onto your little prop there, and we're actually going to come lying down and start to play with some exercises a little bit to try to find our best neutral spine, and then take that neutral spine or the lie all the way down for me. And make sure you have like any props or any whatever. And like whatever prop you have. If you don't have a prop, this teacher training, I mean, then whatever you have on top of your pelvis and get it to balance. And if you don't have that, you use the triangle that we talked about your hand. Backwards.
You're cutting in and out.
See how I can, it's full and point my belly. Okay? You can feel the weight rocking towards your hips and away. Give yourself a few rocks forwards and backwards. And then the idea is to get that can of soup or whatever prop you have to balance back on that pubic bone to where it's not rolling anyway. And that ideally is going to help you to find your neutral spine. So do that a few times. And then also, if it's helpful, you can take that soup of can and do the same thing left and right. Maybe you turn it so that it'll roll left and right and do the same thing. Push one hip bone down a little bit, feel that soup can roll towards it, and then go to the other side. And then try to find a place where your soup can or whatever prop you have can come right back onto the pelvis, nice and neutral, okay? We call those our pelvic rocks, forwards and backwards, and that really helps us to create a neutral spine. I want you to place that can right back where it was, and let's do a little bit of movement so we can see how that movement actually changes our pelvis. So find where your neutral pelvis is today as best you can, and set your arms up towards the ceiling. We're gonna do some head curls, because most of us don't realize that when we head curl, we actually posterior.
Leslie?
So we're gonna press the arms down, curl the head, neck, and shoulders up.
Can't
and I don't
see you.
that and
Leslie, we lost you. We lost your video.
my screen open. Okay, hold on.
You might have to go inside.
Okay, I know why it's not working. It's working on. Okay, hold on.
You might have to go inside to get better internet.
Let's go. Okay.
Everyone should turn off their, mute the audio, otherwise when someone speaks, we don't see Leslie.
All right, let me, and you guys can't see me on the West Palm one either. Okay, well, I'm just gonna move around and you guys are gonna move while I talk, and hopefully we can find Wi-Fi. Can you hear me? You just can't see me, right?
You cut in and out a lot.
Okay, all right.
The picture is frozen where we see your hair.
Okay. Okay.
You would not now like the picture.
All right. So let me know when you can see the picture again. But in the meantime, if you can hear me, then you can lie down with your soup can and practice those for a second, those pelvic rocks to find your neutral again. And then that's where we're gonna start the head curls. Go on my back porch and see if this helps. Okay, now from the head curl position, if you send your arms straight up towards the ceiling and you start to press the arms down and curl the chin to the chest, a lot of you are gonna notice that that little soup can or whatever you have is gonna roll towards your pubic bone. So look at it while you're in that head curl, if you can maintain it, and let your pelvis come back to a more neutral position. And then lower the head, neck, and shoulders. Do that a few times, curling up and then lowering back down, trying to make sure that your soup can or whatever you have is staying nice and steady. And then I want you to bring your head, neck, and shoulders down, and we're gonna play with some toe taps. So bring your legs into a toe tap position. Legs into tap, sorry, I should say. Those legs go into tabletop position, and then one leg is gonna tap down, toe towards the mat, and then bring the legs back to table, and then switch. And continue alternating those legs. And then as you're doing that, notice if your soup can is rocking side to side, forwards or backwards, and try to keep it as steady as you can as you are doing those toe taps. See if you can bring both toes down and up as you're doing this. And if you really want to add in challenge, you can curl the head, neck, and shoulders up as you're doing those toe taps. Inhaling to tap down and exhaling to come up. Again, trying to find that nice neutral pelvis. From here, we're going to take it actually into bridging. So go ahead and ditch whatever prop you have, and let's focus now on working through the hip joint and the muscles. Now that we have, we know what pelvic stability feels like in a neutral position. So arms pressed by your side, open your feet like fist distance, or maybe 2 fist distances if that feels better for your hips. And let's do some bridging. So inhale to take those hips straight up, and then exhale to take those hips straight back down. And as you're doing this, try to keep a nice flat spine. And of course, when the pelvis goes up, if you had your soup can there, it'd be spilling right on your face. But the idea is that as you're lowering and lifting those hips, your pelvis is still not rocking side to side. You're not arching through the back. You're just taking the same stable pelvis you had on the floor and bringing it up and down. If you want to add in some articulation, you can start to curl your pelvis to come up and then roll your spine to come right back down. Do that a few times, reaching the arms nice and long. Open the collarbones wide, pull the tummy in, soften those ribs, thinking about, of course, all your Pilates principles there. From here, inhale at the top of that bridge and exhale to hold it there. Let's do a little bit of marching and bring one leg into tabletop position and then place that foot back down. Alternating the legs, just like we do toe taps, but when you bring that leg to tabletop, try not to let that pelvis rock forward, backwards, or side to side. Alternating here for about 5 more seconds, and for 4, and for 3, and for 2, and for 1. Place both feet back down once you're even. Take an inhale at the top of your bridge, and then exhale to lower the spine all the way on and down. From here, I want you to stretch your legs out nice and long in front of you and squeeze them super tight together. And we're going to take some movement through the hip. I want you to bend the right knee into your chest and just give it a hug for a second. Feel a stretch through the lower back. And then send your right leg straight up towards the ceiling. Bring your arms back by your side, point and flex your foot a few times, and then leave your foot in a flexed position and see if you can externally rotate and then internally rotate. So let the toe and the knee gently turn out to the side like a Pilates stance and then come back. And notice how that feels inside of your hip. You can soften the knee if you need to, but what should be happening is that femur head is spinning around in your acetabulum, but your pelvis is not moving. Stop your leg in a parallel position. Keep your foot flexed. Scoop your belly and lower a straight right leg all the way down to the floor until it touches the mat. Pull the left knee in and let's do the same thing here. So pull the left knee in, give yourself a little hug. Feel that stretch in your lower back. By the way, when you lowered that right leg, you should have actually felt your right leg longer than your left. Left leg up, point and flex a few times, get a little stretch, arms come by the side. Okay, make sure your belly's scooped in to protect your back. And then with a flexed foot, give me external and internal rotations. Start to turn the toe in and out. It's moving that hip in the hip joint a little bit for 4 and 3 and 2 And 1, flex the foot in a parallel position, scoop the belly and lengthen the leg out of the hip socket as you lower it down to the mat. And now you should feel like your legs are back to the same length. I want you to lie on your right side for me and bend your knees and stack your knees and your feet up for the clam. We're just gonna warm up the outside of the hip a little bit and then we're gonna get right into the core work. So lying on your side, you can prop yourself however feels good. You can prop yourself up on your hands, you can lie all the way flat. On your forearm is fine, that's just gonna be pretty challenging. And I just want you to open and close your top knee. Inhale to open it and exhale to close. If you're lying all the way flat, you can actually try to balance whatever soup can or whatever you had on the top hip bone. But if you're propped up, that's not going to be able to happen for you. But if you want to take a moment and do that, you're welcome to. But the point is that when you open that top knee, that pelvis, that top hip bone is not rolling forwards or backwards. If you're not sure if that's happening, back your booty up against a wall. And as you open up that top knee or your couch or whatever's in your room, open up that top knee, and if you feel more pressure on whatever's behind you, then you have tilted the pelvis back. Open that top knee and give me some pulses there, little pulses back and back. This is where I feel like I call it the little catch where your butt and your thigh meet. I want you to squeeze it there. Give me 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and lower the leg down. Flip over to the other side and let's warm up the other hip. Nothing fancy in between sides. Again, if you want to grab that prop and put it on the top of your hip, or if you want to back yourself up against a wall, prop yourself up though the same way you did on the other side if you can, and then start to open and close that top knee. Noticing that one side's probably going to be a little bit more, or have, I should say, a little bit more range of motion than the other side. That's totally normal. But you still want to make sure that your pelvis is not rocking, even if this side has a little bit less range of motion. Try to make sure the legs are closing all the way together when you close those legs. That way you're getting that full range of motion through the hip socket. And then on your last one here, when you open the leg, push back and back for little pulses, keeping the feet together. Keep your belly sucked in tight for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and close the knees and take a rest. Lying on your back for me, go ahead and hug your knees in towards your chest and just rock a little bit from side to side just for a moment. We're going to get into the Pilates work. We're going to flow a little bit faster now, but I want you to notice how the stability of your pelvis is going to change as we move through these movements. Taking it into the 100, bring your legs to tabletop position and stretch your arms straight up towards the ceiling. Remember to leave the head down if the head curling is not in your practice. Curl the head, neck, and shoulders up. Bring the arms next to the hips and start to pump the arms up and down for the 100. Inhaling for 5 and exhaling for 5. 1, and if you feel ready, you're welcome to take the legs extended to the ceiling, or you can lower them halfway down towards the mat. But the point is that pelvis is not rocking forwards or backwards. You should still have that soup can, if you want to put it back there, nice and level right on that pelvis. In for 5 and out for 5. Noticing that when I say to curl higher, are you actually lifting your chest to your legs, or are you trying to tuck your pelvis to get the legs closer to you? Give me 2 more breaths here. In for 5. Watch your belly sink in deeper if you're in the head curl. If not, just leave it down. 1 more breath here. In for 5. Exhale out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hug the knees, lower down, take a rest. Send your legs out nice and long on the mat for me. Bring your arms by your side for single leg circle. Stretch your right leg straight up towards the ceiling with a point in your foot, and I want you to externally rotate here. Cross the leg over the midline of your body and circle it right back up to the top. Stopping your leg at the top. Each circle is its own entity. I don't want that hip spinning around in that hip socket. I want each little circle to have a stopping point at the top. Inhale to start your circle and exhale to finish. If you want to place your weight or whatever prop you have back on your pelvis, use it as a guide. From here, reverse, take those circles in the opposite direction. You can always rest your hands on your pelvis in that triangle shape if you need to. Noticing if you're feeling anything in the lower back, soften the knees a little bit. On your last one here, strap your leg up towards the ceiling, point and flex your foot a few times, back in a parallel position, and with a straight leg, lower your right leg all the way down to the mat. Try to lengthen your right leg longer than your left leg, and then send your left leg up for single leg circle on the other side. Point that left foot for me and give me a little external rotation, and off you go, circling it around. I only want that circle to be as big as you can keep your pelvis steady. So if your soup can is rocking, or whether it's imaginary or real, or your leg that's on the floor is rocking, chances are your pelvis is too. Your legs are a good reflection of what your pelvis is trying to do. They're going to try to accommodate any little movement. Reverse the circle, inhale to start, exhale to finish. Let's do about 4 more here.
Also noticing if your arms and shoulders are moving and try to keep them a little more steady. And on your last circle, stop it up towards the ceiling, point and flex the foot a few times in a parallel position, and then flex the foot to lower the straight leg all the way down, lengthening your left leg as long, if not longer, than your right leg. Hug the right knee in towards the chest for single leg stretch. Lift the left leg halfway up and off the mat, come into a head curl if that's in your practice, and start to switch the legs. One leg comes into the chest while the other leg only extends out as far as you can without letting your back arch. Here's where you might feel that lower back coming into a little bit more of an imprint, okay? It's not a big deal here, but if it's available to you to come into a more neutral position, you're actually gonna get slightly deeper core work. One thing that's gonna help you stay more neutral in the pelvis is stopping your knees at tabletop instead of into the chest. 5 more seconds here, leaving the head up or down, whatever your body needs for 3, and for 2, and for 1. Hug both knees in and take a rest. Going into double leg stretch, I want you to think the same thing about that pelvis. Curl up and hug your shins. Lengthen your legs out only as low as you can and send your arms back behind you if that's available. Circle your arms, hug the shins back in. Inhale to reach, and then exhale to circle and hug. Head, neck, and shoulders can stay down, but if it's lifted, watch that pelvis. Try to stop the knees again, more at tabletop position. And think about getting your heart closer to your knees rather than your knees closer to your heart. Again, the pelvis will stay more neutral and the work will get deeper. Let's go 5 more seconds here, and then we're gonna flow right into single straight leg stretch for 4. And for 3, move at your own pace for 2. And on 1, hug the knees in, extend the right leg up towards the ceiling, extend the left leg out to 45, and scissor those legs. 1 comes up and 1 comes down. If you need to, lower the head and give yourself a reprieve. You can bend the knees or go back to toe taps. If you're holding the legs, don't hold behind that knee socket. Hold behind the calf or the thigh for me. Try not to bring the leg over your chest. Can you stop it right over the hip, just as though it was in tabletop, and lift your heart more to the knees, keeping the pelvis more neutral for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Lower down, take a quick rest. Send the legs straight up towards the ceiling for double leg lowers. Curl up and sweep your hands behind your head, and then flex the feet to lower and point the feet to lift. If curling the head up is too much, leave it down. Moving the legs only at a range of motion that does not let that pelvis rock. So maybe your range of motion today is a little bit smaller than normal, or maybe you bring that soup can back and try to refine it a little bit. But try to stop the legs before they come right back up to the ceiling so that your pelvis is not rocking towards you. Give me 3 more here. Inhale to lower, exhale to lift. Finding Pilates stance if you're feeling anything in the hips you're not a fan of. On your last one here, when your legs come up towards the ceiling, keep the hands behind the head, pull the right knee into the chest and go into crisscross. Start to switch and switch. If you don't want to curl the head up, just go back to single leg stretch, pulling one knee in and then the other, and then switch and switch. Try to get your opposite armpit over to the opposite knee, but notice if one hip is trying, or one butt cheek is trying to lift up off that mat, and try to keep your pelvis a little steadier. Stop the knees more at tabletop for 5 seconds, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1, and come all the way up and take a rest, or down and take a rest. Very good job, everybody. All right, sit yourself up, roll your spine up and off that mat for me. Sit up nice and tall and extend your legs out in front of you. Going into spine twist, I want you to flex your feet and try to make your feet as even as in front of you as you can. If you can bring your legs together, please do. But if you need a little bit of space there, go ahead and give me like a fist distance. Arms go out to the side in a T position and just start to rotate your spine from side to side. Inhale up through the center, and then exhale as you twist. And I want you to take a glance at your feet as you're twisting from side to side, and notice if one foot is trying to get longer or shorter than the other. And again, your feet are a slight reflection of what your hips are doing. So if that's happening, one of your hips is coming slightly more forward than the other. If you need to pull the flesh away from your sits bones so you can feel them on the mat a little bit better, go ahead and do that. From here, once you've done that a few times, come back center and let's take it into saw. So open the legs super wide, maybe about as wide as the mat. Arms come out to a T position. Twist to the right, reach forward and reach your left pinky finger to your right pinky toe and hold it there for a moment. See if you can get your left butt cheek a little bit heavier back down onto the mat, and then come all the way up, untwist. Twist to the left, lean over that leg, reach the right hand to the left foot, and try to get the right butt cheek down more, and then come all the way up. Continue like that. Inhale through the center and then exhale to twist. Now the hard part here is your legs are not together. So it's hard to tell if one is getting shorter than the other. So really dig those heels down into the floor. You can even bend the knees if that helps you. And try to notice if one butt cheek's trying to lift up off that mat, and try to keep them nice and steady. If you have to, put something under there and notice if all of a sudden you don't feel it anymore. Let's go about 5 more seconds here, but can you get a little bit taller? Because I can see some of y'all people. Get a little bit taller up there in the center. That's it, my friends. For 5 and 4 and 3 and 2, and come all the way up on 1. Very good job. All right, lying on your right side for me, let's take this into some deeper side work. I want you to lie all the way down, propping your head up in your hands, and lining yourself up at the back of your mat. So either the back of your mat, or if you want to do this up against your couch or your wall, it'll be really good feedback for whether or not your pelvis is rocking, or if you want to bring like something onto the pelvis to notice whether it's rocking, you can do that. From here, I want you to just lift and lower your top leg. Inhale, lift, and exhale to lower. Now, remember when we were lowering and lifting the leg when we were lying on our back and you were reaching your leg longer than the other leg? I want you to try to reach that top leg out of that hip socket so it gets longer than the bottom leg. Inhale to lift and exhale to lower. Now, notice if you've rocked forwards or backwards, or maybe you have something on the hip that's starting to shimmy a little bit. Let's go for 3 more here. And for 2, try to keep the obliques lifted. I know I'm not cueing them or focusing on the glutes today, but they're still there. And then on the last one, lift the leg up and hold it there. Your leg moves forwards and backwards for kicks. We're going to move the leg how it goes in the hip in all directions. We're really feeling those glutes here. Inhale to kick forward and exhale to go back. This is where that pelvis is going to start to rock more. So don't worry about how much range of motion you have. Worry about how steady you can keep that hip. Soften the knee if you need to, and add a point forward and a flex back if you can. Let's go 3 more here. And for 2. And on 1, stop the leg over your bottom leg and hold. Lift it up about halfway, point the foot, and draw me some small circles. Remember single leg circle? I want you to think you're doing a single leg circle on the side. You're only moving that leg as much as you can so that the hip is not rocking. See if you can get your bottom oblique to lift up off that mat a tiny little bit. Your hand on your hip is always here to help you if you need it. To reverse those circles, still trying to reach that top leg longer than your bottom leg. Really reach, 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 reach. That's actually going to help you lift your bottom oblique. Because when your pelvis is more steady, you actually have more engagement in your side body. For 3, and for 2, and for 1, lower it down and take a rest. Externally, body stance, and let's bend the leg in and out like a frog. You can slide the heel along the inside of your leg, or if you want something a little bit different, you can come and bring the heel more in line with your sits bone, which will add a tiny bit more work to that hip. But either way, I don't want the hip to rock forwards or backwards. Remember when we were doing our single leg stretch and I said stop the leg more at tabletop? Stop the leg, not at the shoulder, but right over that hip. Give me 4 more here. Maybe add a flex or a point to the foot, the opposite of what you're doing here, and lengthen your top leg longer than your bottom leg. And for 2, and on 1, stretch it all the way out and lower it down to take a rest. Lie on your belly for me for swimming. If that does not sound like a good time for you, you can sit in child's pose. You can do swan instead. Lengthen your arms out nice and long in front of you. Lengthen your legs out behind you about as wide as your mat. I want you to lift your legs up and off the mat for me. Lift your arms up and off the mat and see if you can pedal one arm up as the opposite leg lifts, and then switch and switch and switch. But I want you to think about the glutes work and the pelvis stability here. So as you're lifting the leg, think I'm lifting my thigh off the floor, not my foot. I don't want you to bend the knee. And I want you to keep both of your hip bones nice and steady on the mat. Notice if you're rocking from side to side and make it smaller. 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 and lower down. Now we're going to do that again, but if you want to add challenge, place your prop on your sacrum and see if you can do this without your prop falling off your little bunny tail there. And then when you're ready, look right to the mat, lift up and swim again. Point the feet away from you, reach, 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 reach. Scoop that belly up off the floor if you've had enough. Find child's pose for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower down. Pop back onto child's pose for me. That should feel nice in the lower back. I know that was quite a bit of swimming, but very good. Take a little stretch through that lower back, sinking your pelvis to your heels. And then let's lie on the other side and move your other leg in all directions inside of the hip socket this way.
So once you've lined yourself up with the back of your mat, or again, if you want to use a prop or something that's close by, feel free to do that. And lengthen your legs out long, top hand on the hip if that's helpful for you, and off we go for lowers and lifts. Inhale to lower, exhale to lift, reaching that leg nice and long. Try to get your top leg longer than your bottom leg. Now remember when we were doing clam and I said you might have more range of motion on one side than the other? Same thing here. So if you feel like your hips rocking a lot more here than it was on the other side, just keep it a little bit smaller. Go for 4 more here, and for 3, and for 2, lift that side body if you can, and for 1, lower it halfway down so you can swing it forward and backwards. Keep the foot flexed if you can to start, and inhale forward, exhale back, only as big as you can without rocking the pelvis. Again, this leg might have more movement than the other, especially if you favor one leg more than the other. That happens a lot in the dancing world, actually a lot in the Pilates world, a lot in the yoga world. For 3, and for 2, and on 1, lower the leg all the way down and take a rest. You're going to lift it about halfway up and point the foot this time for circles. Circle that leg around and around. Now I want that leg to be what's stirring around in the hip socket. I don't want that hip to rock from side to side. Reach your top leg longer than your bottom leg and try to reverse those circles. Notice if your shoulders are starting to rock a little bit. I know I'm focusing a lot on the pelvis, but that's today's workshop. For 3, and 2, and 1, lower it down for half frogs. Externally rotate and then slide your top leg up and down along either the bottom leg or in line with your top sits bone. See if you can add a flex to that foot if you've started with a point, or you can add both, actually. Flex one direction, point the other. But stop the knee right over that hip joint. Try not to let that knee come so close to you that you let the hip rock from side to side. For 3, and for 2, and for 1, lie all the way down on your backs, and let's take piriformis stretch. So lie all the way down and cross your right ankle over your left knee and draw your left knee in towards your chest. The stretch that you're feeling there is the fascia along the back of your leg, and it is connected to your calf, actually. Sometimes it's beneficial to roll out or stretch your calves before you do glute work. It actually helps you access them better. Switch and do the other side for that piriformis stretch. This is a great stretch to do if you sit all the time. I call this the airport stretch. You do not have to do it lying on your back. That would be gross, but you can stand up and hold on to something and do the same thing like you would at the bar. All righty, from here, I want you to stay lying all the way down, and we're going to do some rollovers. From here, send your legs into tabletop position and bring your arms by your side for me. So when we do a rollover, it's really important that the pelvis remains super steady, because as you roll down, if you start to go side to side, you're going to lose your stability. So from here, just bring, with tabletop legs, your knees like kind of over your chest, like curl the pelvis a little bit, like you were spilling your soup can into your belly button, and then uncurl it. And then curl it up and uncurl it, and keep it small. It doesn't have to be very big. I don't want you to feel like you're forcing it. And this is your modification if you feel like full rollover is not in your practice. But I want you to notice if one side of your hips is trying to lower before the other, or if one side feels like it's drifting off to the one side of the mat. From here, you can extend the legs straight up towards the ceiling and do the same thing. You can just bring those legs towards you and then down a little bit. But if you're feeling frisky today and you want to come right into full rollover, you roll those legs.
Les, the audio got really hard to hear. Sorry.
For me. Flex those feet for me, and then roll the spine all the way back and down. Make sure you're muted, guys. And then again, roll all the way up and over if you can. And then notice as you're rolling down, both sides of your back and your butt cheeks are down at the same time. Let's do a couple more just like this. Inhale to go over, and then exhale to roll back down. Try not to let those hips go from side to side. Again, take the modification of just the knees coming, or straight legs if you need to. On your last one, no rush to get there. Roll the legs all the way up and over, and see if you can take like 6 to 8 counts to roll through that spine, feeling the articulation as you go down, bone by bone by bone, and then both of your butt cheeks will touch, and you'll hug your knees into your chest. Rolling over onto your tummy, we're going to take swan and then leg pull front to bring us up standing to finish. So in swan, I want you to keep both of your hip bones pressed down into the mat. So flip over onto your belly for me. I want you to keep your pubic bone and your hip bones pressed into the mat. As you lift up for your swan, don't let your pelvis lift off. I want you to keep it down on the mat and then lower back and down. Bring your hands underneath of your armpits and then inhale to lift. And then exhale to lower. The arms do not have to be straight. We are not coming into a full up dog. I think that's what we call it. I'm taking yoga in a while, to be honest. But I want you to notice if your feet are moving, if your legs are moving, and I want you to find stability through that pelvis. Try to notice if one hip bone is being pushed more into the floor than the other. And as you lower down, see if you can scoop your belly energetically away from the floor and keep your eyes where your collarbones are looking. On your last one here, if you want to come up and hold it there, just roll the shoulders back a little more, stick out the chest a little bit, look to the right like we do in chest expansion, look to the left, look back center, and let's lower down. Let's do it one more time. This time start looking left, come up to swan hold, shoulders back, belly in, look left, hold the belly in, look right, and look center, lower all the way on down. From here, I want you to keep your hands underneath of your armpits and curl your toes back under on the mat. If you want to leave your knees on the floor, you can, but I want you to see if you can pop yourself up into a plank and hold it there. Once you're in plank position, I want you to notice that it's hard to keep your pelvis nice and steady here because you have no floor or anything to help you. So I want you to start to shift your body forwards and backwards, keeping both feet on the floor. Eventually, we'll take this into leg pull. Anytime you need a break, you can take it. If you need to go to the forearms, just make sure your forearms are nice and parallel on the floor, no holding your own hands. You can do this on your knees as well. It's just a smaller range of motion. From here, center yourself right back into a plank, lower the knees down, take a quick rest, and find child's pose if that's the best stretch for you, or you can pike up. And then coming back into that same plank position, you can do the same thing again. Otherwise, we're going to take it into full leg pull. Now the hips are definitely going to want to rock. If you want to put that weight or something back on your sacrum, you can. Lift your right foot and point it behind you. Shift your weight forwards and backwards just 2 times, the same way we just did with both feet. And then once you're back in plank, lower the right foot, lift the left, point it, and do the same thing. Shift forward back 2 times, and then lower the foot and do it on the other side. If you need a break, take it, but try to keep that pelvis nice and level to the floor. You may not even know if that's happening because you don't have anything underneath that pelvis, but that's okay. Give me about 5 more seconds here. And for 4, and for 3, and for 2, and on 1, find a plank and pike the hips all the way up. And see if you can walk either feet to hands or hands to feet and just hang out for a moment. Roll up like half-ish way, so you're just hanging like a rag doll, letting your head waterfall away from your heels. Let your arms just hang and just feel a softness in your knees if you're feeling something in your back you're not a fan of. From here, I want you to gently bend the knees and curl the pelvis underneath of you, just a little bit. Now roll the spine up 1 vertebrae at a time and try to keep that pelvis nice and steady underneath of you. Take the arms up. Once you feel like you can stand tall and straighten the legs, do so. Tighten the glutes and lift the heels up and off the floor and hold it there. And I want you to feel like you're trying to hold in your P. I want you to use that pelvic floor. I want you to lift up, 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 up. Try to get taller, 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 taller. You should be able to stay there all day. And then lower your heels all the way down and arms down to be finished. Very good job, everybody. Thanks for bearing with my technical difficulties there. I think I made it work the best we could. If you have like any questions or anything, you can leave them in the comments and I will take a little look-see. Or if you have my text or my email, you can always do that, or Facebook is cool. Otherwise, you're free to have an awesome, amazing day.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you, Leslie.
Leslie.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you, thank you. Oh, I love that dog.
Bye,
Nancy.
Leslie. Say bye, Leslie. Say bye.
Baby.
Kiss Lou. Hi.
I know.
Kiss
That's
Lou.
mine here, actually.
He was with me. Have a good one. Thank you, babe.
All right, cool.
Thank you, Leslie. Bye-bye.
Welcome. Have a good one.
You too.